firecracker opened on December 17th, 1892, at the Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, Russia. At the premiere, it was considered a failure by the public and critics. Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky died less than a year later, not knowing that his ballet would become a huge success worldwide. Thanks to such wonderful people like the Japanese maestro Seiji Osawa. Jacob Ludwig Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy came from a wealthy Hamburg family who mixed with many of Germany's great leading artists. A clever wunderkind, he excelled as a painter, poet, athlete, linguist, and musician. The Christmas tree, also known as the Tannenbaum, originated in Germany, Deutschland. And Germany has over 400 zoos, the largest amount of zoos in the world. Not even Japan comes close to beating Germany's record. Sushi has been around since the 2nd century AD in China. And then by the 17th century, the Chinese brought the sushi over to Japan, where the Japanese actually took the ideas from the Chinese. Hence why there are differences between Japanese and Chinese. The Louvre is one of the largest museums in all of France. It is so big, it is humanly impossible to see all the beautiful art the Louvre has to offer, including the beautiful Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. In fact, such cartoons like Madeline and Courage the Cowardly Dog have actually talked about the Louvre in their respective shows. New York City is like the most diverse city in the world, with over 800 languages spoken in the city, like French, German, Japanese, Spaniard Spanish, Latino Spanish, Italian, European Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Thai, Swedish, Turkish, Danish, Norwegian, Finnish, Icelandic, Mandarin, Cantonese, Zulu, Mongolian, Korean, you name it. Gustave Eiffel completed his beautiful Eiffel Tower on March 31st, 1889, and it was the main attraction at the 1889 World's Fair in Paris, France. Merci beaucoup. Dankeschön. Arigato gozaimasu. Muchas gracias. Grazie mille. Obrigado. The construction of the Leaning Tower of Pisa began in 1173 and finished in 1399, and it's one of the most visited landmarks in all of Italy. In fact, many movies and television shows have referenced the Leaning Tower of Pisa, one of the most beautiful landmarks in all of Italia. Even Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar, has that little bit about that famous tower. Buckingham Palace in London, England, holds an impressive 775 rooms. 52 royal and guest bedrooms, 19 staterooms, and 78 bathrooms. Wow, that is really impressive for a beautiful palace in London, England. The legendary Buckingham Palace. The Nintendo Famicom was launched on July 15th, 1983, around the time the video game crash occurred. And then 2 years later, Nintendo's Nintendo Entertainment System launched on October 18th, 1985. And one of the launch games that came bundled with the system was Super Mario Bros. Well, in certain units. Other units have both Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt as the packing game. While Nintendo's Super Famicom didn't have any packing games when the Super Famicom came out in Japan in 1990, and the Super Nintendo in America in 1991 and in Europe in 1992. When the Super Nintendo came out in America, Super Mario World was the game that was bundled with the system. But in Japan, you had to buy the game separately. Around the late 1970s, early 1980s, Gunpei Yokoi was on a train ride home when he saw a businessman playing with a calculator. And Gunpei Yokoi actually came up with the idea of the Game & Watch. You know those little LCD games that Tiger Electronics would have many years later. And then in 1989, the Nintendo Game Boy was released. And the game that came bundled with the handheld was Tetris, which was originally a game created by the Soviet Union. But Tetris became a huge seller overnight, along with the Game Boy. Then 2 years later, Sega released the Sega Game Gear, which was in color and had a bright screen, but it was a battery guzzler, because the Sega Game Gear required 6 AA batteries, while the Nintendo Game Boy only required 4 AA batteries. The Sega Game Gear had like a 5-hour battery life, while the Game Boy had like a 10 to 14 hour battery life. Trust me, I've looked it up on the internet. Superashi desu ne. Das wunderbar.